faculty and staff of the Wee Kim Wee School of Communication and Information for inviting me to give your convocation speech today. It's a wonderful honor and a privilege for me to speak here for 10 minutes without fear of contradiction, defamation, or retaliation. I say this as a Singaporean and more so as a husband. My wife is a wonderful person and perfect in every way, except one. She is the editor of a magazine. She corrects people for a living. She has honed her expert skills over a quarter of a century, mostly by practicing at home on her husband. I, on the other hand, am a litigator. I spend my day telling people how wrong they are. I make my living being disagreeable. Nevertheless, there is perfect harmony in our matrimonial home. That is because when an editor and a litigator have an argument, the one who wins is the wife. And so I want to start by giving one piece of advice to the men. When you've already won her heart, you don't need to win every argument. Marriage is considered one milestone in life. Some of you may already be married. Some of you may never be married. Some of you will be married one day. Some of you will enjoy the experience of marriage so much you will do it over and over and over again. Marriage is recognized as one of the most important institutions in our society, which is why I find it odd that it is the one subject that is never taught in schools. It is all about trial and error, or in my cases, errors followed by a trial. But I am delighted that communication is being taught, and taught by people like my friend, Cherian George. Cherian hasn't changed. Cherian hasn't changed since I first met him in Hwa Chong. Unique, self-made, provocative, and those are just his clothing. Today, though he is like the rest of us, wearing something different. We all dress this way to celebrate your graduation, the end of education. The good news is that you are done learning. The bad news is that you don't need any further education because your entire life is over. It is gone. This may come as a shock to some of you. You're in your teens or early 20s. People may tell you you are going to live for 70, 80, 90 years. That is your life expectancy. I love that term, life expectancy. We all understand that term to mean the average lifespan of a group of people. But I'm here to talk to you about a bigger idea, which is what you expect from life. You may be very happy to know that Singapore is currently ranked as the country with the third highest life expectancy. We are behind Andorra and Japan, and tied with San Marino. It seems quite clear why people in those countries and ours live so long. We share one thing in common. Our football teams are incompetent. There is absolutely no danger of any of our citizens having their pulses raised by watching us play in the World Cup. Don't imagine that you will live longer just because you watch football. Singaporeans have a life expectancy of about 81.8 years. Singapore men live to an average of 79.21 years. And Singapore women live on an average 5 years longer, probably to take into account the amount of time they need to spend in the bathroom. So here you are, in your 20s, thinking that you will have another 40 years to go, 4 decades in which you can live long and prosper. Bad news. Read the papers. Sometimes some of it is true. There are people dropping dead when they are 50, 40, 30 years old. Quite possibly, some may even drop dead after convocation. Those people would be very disappointed that they didn't meet their life expectancy. I'm here to tell you this: forget about your life expectancy. After all, it's calculated based on an average, and you never, ever want to expect being average. Revisit those expectations. You might be looking forward to working, falling in love, marrying, raising a family. You are told that as graduates, you should expect to find a job paying so much, where your hours are so much, where your responsibilities are so much. That is what is expected of you. And if you live up to it, it will be an awful waste. If you expect that, you are limiting yourself. You will be living your life according to boundaries set by other people, by average people. I have nothing against average people, but one should not aspire to be them. You don't need years of education by the best minds in Singapore to prepare you to be average. What you should prepare for is mess. Life's a mess. You are not entitled to expect anything from it. Life is not fair. Everything does not balance out. In the end, life happens, and you have no control over it. Good or bad things happen to you day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. Your degree is a poor armor against fate. Erase all life expectancies and just live. Your life is over as of today. At this point in time, you have grown as tall as you ever will be. You are physically the fittest that you ever will be in your entire life. And you're probably looking the best that you will ever look. That is as good as it gets. It's all downhill from here, friends. Or up. No one knows. What does that mean for you? It is good your life is over. Since your life is over, you are free. Let me tell you the wonderful things you can do when you are free. The most important thing is do not work. Work is anything you are compelled to do. By its very nature, it is undesirable. Work kills. The Japanese have a term, karoshi, which means death from overwork. That's the most dramatic form of how work can kill. But it can also kill you in many other subtle ways. If you work day by day, bit by bit, your soul is chipped away, disintegrating until there's nothing left. A mighty rock is ground into dust and sand. As a common misconception, especially in Singapore, that work is necessary. You'll meet people doing all kinds of miserable jobs, or people who are employed doing something morally distasteful, something they don't believe in, something that's plain criminal. Such people justify their actions by telling you they're making a living. No, they're not. They're dying, frittering away their lives, their fast extinguishing lives, doing something so that they can balance out the remainder of their lives living. People will tell you that work ennobles you, that work lends you a certain dignity. Work makes you free. That slogan, work makes you free, in German, Arbeit macht frei, was placed at the entrances of a number of Nazi concentration camps. The symbolism is stark. Do not waste the vast majority of your life doing something that you hate, so that you can spend the small remainder of your life in modest comfort. You may never reach that end anyway. Resist the temptation to get a job. Instead, play. Find something you enjoy doing and do it over and over again. You will become good at it. for two reasons: because you like it and you do it often. That will have value in itself. I like arguing. I love language, so I became a litigator. I enjoy it, and I would do it for free. If I don't do it, I would have done something else, perhaps involving writing fiction, sports journalism, for example. So what should you do? You'll find your own niche. I don't imagine you'll need to look hard. By this time in your life, you have a very good idea of what you want to do. In fact, I'll go further and say the ideal situation would be that you will not stop yourself pursuing your passions. You should know what your obsessions are already. For example, if you enjoy knowledge, telling people how smart you are, feeling superior, you might become a teacher. Sorry. Find that pursuit that will energize you, consume you, and become an obsession. Each day you must rise with a restless enthusiasm. Wake up and know exactly what you want to do and why you want to do it. If you don't, you are working. Second, most of you will end up in activities which involve communication. To those of you, I have a second message. Be wary of the truth. I'm not asking you to speak it or write it, for there are times when it is dangerous or impossible to do those things. The truth has a great capacity to offend and injure. And you will find that the closer you are to someone, the more care you must take to disguise or even conceal the truth. Often there is great virtue in being evasive or equivocating. There is also great skill. Any child can tell the truth. It takes great maturity to appreciate the value of silence. In order to be wary of the truth, you must first know it. That requires great frankness to yourself. Never fool that person in the mirror. So I've told you that your life is over, that you should not work, and you should avoid telling the truth. Now, I want to tell you, be hated. Be hated. It's not as easy as it sounds. Do you know anyone who hates you? Hates you. Every great figure who has contributed to the human race has been hated, not just by one person, but often by a great many. That hatred is strong, and it has caused people to be shunned, abused, murdered, and in one famous instance, nailed to a cross. One doesn't have to be evil to be hated. In fact, it's often the case that one is hated precisely because one is trying to do right by one's own convictions. It is far too easy to be liked. One merely has to be accommodating and hold no strong beliefs. Then one will gravitate towards the center, the average, and settle down. That cannot be your role. There are a great many bad people in the world, and if you are not offending them, you must be bad yourself. Popularity is a sure sign that you are doing something wrong. The other side of the coin of being hated is to fall in love. I don't say be loved. That requires too much compromise. If one changes one's looks, personality, and values, one can be loved by anyone. It's not difficult. Rather, I exhort you to love another human being. It may seem odd for me to tell you this. You may expect it to happen naturally, without deliberation. That is false. Modern society is anti-love. We've taken a microscope to everyone to bring out their flaws and shortcomings. Communication nowadays is so powerful and so deep that we tend to know too much about people to want to love them. It is far easier to find a reason not to love someone than otherwise. Rejection only requires one reason. Love requires complete acceptance. It is hard work, but it's the only kind of work that I find palatable. Loving someone has great benefits. There is admiration, learning, attraction, and something for which, for want of a better word, we can call happiness. In loving someone, we become inspired to better ourselves in every way. We learn the worthlessness of material things. We celebrate being human. Love is good for you. Loving someone is therefore very important, and it is also important to love the right person. Depending on popular culture, or despite popular culture, love doesn't happen by chance at first sight across a crowded dance floor. It grows slowly, sinking roots at first before branching out and blossoming. It is not a silly weed, but a mighty, slow-growing tree that can weather any storm. You will find that when you have someone to love, the face is less important than the brain. The body is less important than the heart. You will also find that it is no great tragedy if your love is not reciprocated. You are not doing this to be loved back. The value of love is to inspire you. Finally, you will find that there is no half measure when it comes to loving someone. You either don't or you do with every cell in your body, completely, utterly, without reservation or apology. It consumes you and you are reborn by it, all the better for it. To sum up, don't work, be wary of the truth, be hated, love someone. That's probably all the life expectancy anyone can handle. There's so much to do. Get going.
Mr. Pro-Chancellor, may I invite you to present, on behalf of the University, a certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Mr. Adrian Tan.